Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk News. I'm Luke Owen and this is Wrestling News. And yes, we're going to get into all of the latest CM Punk drama shortly, as I know you're all still desperate to hear about it. But first, Don Callis has a new t-shirt and it costs a lot of money. Yes, this brand spanking new Don Callis t-shirt can be yours for the low price of just $109.99. $110. This t-shirt company is taking things too far, but there is a good reason for its high price point, according to Callis, who tweeted that all proceeds go to buy Kota Ibushi a new support animal now that Kenny is broken. Lol. Right? Anyway, onto the CM Punk stuff. It's now been a couple of days since the firing of CM Punk from AEW, and the effects are still being felt. Despite the company putting on arguably the best show they've done all year in All Out, a lot of the focus is still on one Bill Phil and his backstage fight with Jack Perry at last weekend's All In. There is still a lot to the story that we don't know, and possibly might never ever know, which would include the strength and severity of the lunge that Punk reportedly made against Tony Khan at All In. Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio over the weekend that he went lightly on that lunge quote, which came from an eyewitness to the fight who was said to be a key eyewitness. Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated writes that Khan did feel physically threatened during the incident. This has sort of been brought up in a few places, like the statement that AEW released about Punk's firing, where Khan wrote that he made the decision to can Punk in the best interests of the amazing people who make AEW possible every week, and he sort of alluded to it in his pre-show promo at Collision, which was heavily booed by the Chicago crowd. Justin Barrasso writes, "I've heard from more than a few people in wrestling, including WWE, criticizing Khan's speech before Collision." However, Barrasso notes that Khan did have one supporter in Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who reportedly hugged Khan when he went backstage and congratulated him on the promo. According to Barrasso, Steamboat pointed out that Khan turned the majority of boos into cheers, reminding him that it's no easy feat in any building. All Out might have provided us some answers on what's next for AEW, but there is a big question mark over what's next for CM Punk. Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio noted that Punk really wanted to do the G1, and of course there's plenty of rumors circulating that he could be making a play to return to WWE. But the last time that he was fired from WWE, he did something else. Losing UFC and a podcast. The infamous Art of Wrestling podcast episode, where Punk detailed his final few years in WWE and his frustrations within that time, is still talked about to this day. It led to the combustion of his friendship with the show's host Colt Cabana and led to several lawsuits involving WWE. And Barrasso writes in Sports Illustrated, this is by no means the end of Phil Brooks as CM Punk, with sources close to both sides expecting a response from Punk that could be explosive. Legally, it will be interesting to know what Punk can and cannot say, or whether or not the ban on him speaking publicly about Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks came to an end when his contract with AEW did. It all remains to be seen. And speaking of seeing, did anyone else notice a lack of signs for CM Punk at All Out? Well, now we know why. While many fans, critics, and indeed wrestlers completely understand Tony Khan's decision to terminate the contract of CM Punk, the timing of the news was obviously far from ideal, because AEW spent the weekend in Chicago, the home of CM Punk, which is what led to Khan getting a lot of big boos when he made his speech to the crowd at Collision. But remarkably, that feeling was different the following night for All Out, with the Young Bucks getting great reactions, as did Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. It's a far cry from when the Elite had their trios match against Death Triangle last year following Brawl Out, where the Chicago crowd turned on them hard way. But that isn't to say that there was no Punk love in the building, you just wouldn't have seen a lot of it. And that's because fan footage was released to Twitter which revealed that security was removing signs related to Punk. A rumor started to circulate online that security was also asking people wearing Punk shirts to turn them inside out so they couldn't be seen on camera. However, you don't need to be a super sleuth journalist like Sean Rossap to figure out the second part of that story isn't true. You just need eyes to be able to see that there were in fact quite a few CM Punk shirts in the building. Nevertheless, both Fightful Select and Wrestling Observer Radio report that while signs related to Punk were taken away, no one was asked to turn their shirts inside out. SRS writes that one security guard said that in jest. Something that wasn't in jest, however, was a story that came out yesterday during the All In broadcast. Now, this is an interesting one because it's clearly a story that everyone within the wrestling media world has known for a while but never reported on it for whatever reason. Because SRS tweeted in reply to Rovert saying that he imagined this story would be out in the next 24 hours or so, but it didn't take that long, and this is what the story is. Back when William Regal debuted for AEW at Revolution 2022, he had a reported altercation with CM Punk when Punk refused to shake his hand upon arrival. And as we know from the Miz and LA Knight feud, that is a cardinal sin in the world of wrestling. Cassidy Haynes of BodySlam.net writes in his report of the incident that Punk got in Regal's face and told him that he did not like him, he did not trust him, and that Regal was a stooge for Triple H. Discussing this story on Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez said that Regal kept the incident to himself until he told some friends a few months later, which is then when it got told to wrestling reporters who then didn't report it. And the reason that they might not have reported it is because Alvarez said that Regal didn't think the incident was a big deal at all. When asked by a listener if this was a prompt for Regal to leave AEW and go back to WWE, Dave Meltzer said, no, noting that it was Triple H taking a position of power and a job opening that made him go back to WWE because of his close relationship with Hunter. Meltzer said he was leaving either way, whatever happened with him and Punk, the end result was exactly what it was going to be, which, hilariously, almost backs up Punk's initial reported claim against Regal, being a stooge for Hunter. Lastly, on the CM Punk news, for now, and Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomies asked Tony Khan about Punk's non-compete status following his firing. Unsurprisingly, Khan didn't offer much in the way of an answer, simply saying, I don't want to discuss the terms of the separation in that sense. As far as what's going to happen in the future, I can't speak to that. I'm not the attorneys who interpret all of that language. SRS added on Twitter that he is also trying to find out this information and hasn't been able to get an answer either, which means there's only one logical conclusion: CM Punk to WWE confirmed. But while much of the focus is on Punk, what of the man that poked the bear leading to all of this mess in the first place? Jack Perry. Though at one point it was reported that Jack Perry was going to be punished harsher than Punk for instigating the incident at All In with his Crimea River comment, this obviously proved to be not the case, as Perry gets fired of course. But that's not to say that Perry got away scot-free. When asked about Perry's status at the All Out presser, Khan revealed that the former Jungle Boy has been suspended indefinitely following the conclusion of the internal investigation into the incident. Khan said, we suspended Jack as a participant in the incident backstage, and Jack hasn't been around. That's all I can say about it. At the time, we did suspend him, and he hasn't been at AEW since AEW All In. In other All Out news, we got the AEW debut of the former Lana in WWE, now CJ Perry, the real-life wife of Miro. But for those hoping to see a lot more of the ravishing Russian in AEW, Tony Khan might be here to piss on all of your chips. He told the All Out press conference, I think it's great to have CJ here. It's not a long-term guaranteed thing or anything, but at least for tonight, it was great to have her appearing with us. And I thought it was a great surprise. Fightful Select added that Perry's appearance was kept very quiet. CJ, that is, not Jack. In other all-out news, Sean Rossap over at Fightful Select notes that the over-the-budget Battle Royal was never seriously considered for All In last week, as it made more sense to do it in Chicago, as most of the talent was already in town for StarCast. Fightful Select also report that Bryan Danielson was cleared to wrestle last week, and Ricky Starks only found out about his match with the American Dragon on Saturday. AEW reportedly already have an opponent in mind for Danielson at Wrestle Dream next month. And finally, SRS was able to confirm that Billy Starks was unable to get cleared before All Out, where a pitched match was for her to face Athena for the ROH Women's Championship. But that's all from me. Go and check out Ollie's review of the brilliant All Out. I'm going to sit here and move this paper a little bit just until the end cards run out. I think that might be enough. Is that enough? Cool. All you need from me? Lovely. Cool. Let's start sending things off, I think.